Hello, this is Cecil Sunk here, and I'm going to be talking about a PvZ timing attack that revolves around having Sentry and Immortal as your main composition, and it hits right around the 10 to 10:30 minute mark, and ideally you're only going to use it against a Zerg that goes for a fast third, and it absolutely crushes the standard drone until max, and then make lots of Roach's playstyle that's been so popular lately, as popularized by Stefano. Now diving into the replay immediately, here we have a replay between I am ready and I am Nesty being the Zerg. What I want to point out from the early game is that all we have to do is just a standard for the fast expand, and what really matters is how many units you end up with right around the 10-minute mark. Everything else doesn't quite matter. And the reason I'm saying it doesn't quite matter is because there's a whole lot of different ways you can end up with the unit count you need. And that unit count is about anywhere from about 4 to 8 sentries, 2 immortals, and then any number of stalkers and zealots. And you press across the map, and you could take a position at their third and actually kill off their third in the timing attack. And the reason it doesn't matter so much as to what else you have is because as long as you have those units, you'll be able to execute the timing attack. But there's a whole lot of different variations they can go on back at home, and I'm going to go ahead and show you a couple of these variations by going over a few replays in a very quick manner, as the early game details are not what I'm focusing on, mostly just focusing on the timing attack, and then I'll present a build that I used in the last replay. So here you can see a 4-gate robo immediately warping in sentries. Once there's 6 sentries, the Protoss player starts taking their Nexus at their third base, which goes down right at 9 minutes. And they have their first Immortal out right at about 9:20. Second one will be out very shortly. And you can see in order to hit their 10-minute timing, they just immediately start moving across the map at 10 minutes. This Immortal isn't quite done for the push, and I'm sure they could have had it out a little bit earlier with a bit more of a refined execution, although that is pretty minor, as what's most important is just that you're moving out at the correct time with the correct amount of stuff. So here you can see the core composition Immortal, a few sentries, and then other units. Other units can be Stalker or Zealot, depending on your preference. I usually opt for more Stalkers than Zealots. Reason being is damage versus armored. And he was able to see that a Roach Warren was not placed during this whole time. So before you do this push, you do want to see what tech your opponent has. And of course, you don't want a bunch of Zealots and sentries if your opponent has a Spire, which is likely the reason he opted for Stalkers for the push. So now he arrives at the third right at about 10:30. You can look at the unit count. Nesty is only just now having his Lair tech kick in. This timing works the way it does against fast third, because right around this time is right when Lair tech kicks in. And if you hit just before it's able to be fully functional, their Lair tech can actually pay off with Lair tech units. You can end up taking out the hatchery, and in this case, he could have gotten a whole lot of drones if he just placed a couple force fields here. And behind this, he was taking a third base. So he ended up taking out Nesty's third while placing down his own. After he takes down the third, he doesn't even target drones. He immediately walks back in order to defend Ling and Muta counterattacks. And then the rest of the game just progresses into a standard game where both players saturate 3+ bases and lead into the late game, although I Am Ready has a pretty solid lead due to his timing attack on the Zerg's third. Here's another replay featuring Millennium Feast and a Barcode Zerg player. I think this was on the European server. And the same as last game, Feast goes for a Forge Fast Expand, although instead of getting the exact same infrastructure that the player did last game, which you should have been able to see with the production tab if you're interested in that's exactly what happened. He ends up delaying his 2 Vespene Geysers here and opt for more minerals and less sentries. And what those extra minerals allow is for a Nexus to go down an entire 2 minutes earlier. So what Feast does is saturates 2 assimilators, gets a robotics facility, then gets 2 more gateways, and then right at 7 minutes is able to lay down a Nexus, which is actually the build I'll be showcasing in the replay after this one. Once Warp Gate finishes, he warps in a couple sentries. I think he pushes out with only 3 or 4. And chronos out Immortals faster than we saw I Am Ready get them. So in securing more minerals, he did not have quite as many sentries as I Am Ready did when I Am Ready did his push. And then right at about 10 minutes, you'll see Feast go ahead and just move out across the map. He moves out slightly earlier. And even though the Zerg player scouts this, his lair tech is just now kicking in. His glial reconstitution is almost finished. His +1 missile attack is almost finished. All his roaches are almost finished. So this timing push is a very, very well executed timing, in that it's hitting just before all of these things finished. If it got here and there were 23 roaches standing at the 3rd base, this push wouldn't do anything at all, and he would actually probably end up trading inefficiently due to this isolated position out on the map. But since he got here before the roaches are all popped, he's able to focus down the hatchery and immediately run away. And also is able to trade efficiently due to the Zerg player engaging through force fields, which is a bad choice by the Zerg player. Ends up losing almost all of the roaches. His 3rd base is denied again, and that's pretty much the end of this game because the Barcode Zerg threw away all of his army. Behind that timing push, Feast just saturated his 3rd, just now threw down a bunch of gateways. His resources were very high a moment ago, and he's just gonna, after throwing down all these gateways, start climbing the tech tree, probably get a robust support base. Here I have a replay of me playing against his Zerg opponent on ladder, and I'm gonna skip really quickly through the early game. And what I want to show is that you don't actually have to kill the Zerg's 3rd base. The timing attack hits at a very awkward time when the Zergs might still be wanting to drone a pretty good amount. Because usually what Zergs will do is, right around the 8 to 10 minute mark, is make a small pack of roaches, or perhaps Zerglings, just to fend off any gateway pressure, like a 4 gateway warping of +1 zealots. Although you'll see that my push didn't kill their 3rd base. It actually only denied their 4th. But in doing so, they weren't able to drone as properly as they would have liked to. And because of that, I ended up getting a very, very good probe lead in the late game. So here you can see pretty clearly I'm doing the same build as Feast did. I actually took the build from Feast and modified it slightly for myself. Right after 6 minutes, you get the robo and then 2 gateways. And then right at about 7 minutes is when your Nexus should be going down. Just at 7 minutes, like so. No, I only have 1 sentry at this time, 1 cannon. And I'm delaying the 2 assimilators at my natural in favor of more minerals. Chrono out an observer before the Immortals. Now I have 3 sentries, and that's all the sentries I'm going to need for the push. Very minimal amount of force fields. And here we have the 2nd Immortal walking across the map to join up in the push. Notice that I'm walking, trying to avoid this tower right here, and any other overlords or spotting lings I can. I want to get as far across the map without my opponent noticing it as possible. That way they can have less time to react to it. Sadly, I did hit a scouting ling, and that scouting ling is probably what allowed my opponent to defend his expansion properly. So you can see here, none of his lair tech is kicked in. He does not have glial reconstitution. He does not have a spy or even started. All he has right now is unupgraded lings. And if you look at the unit tab, my opponent does have 5 more drones than I have. Although while I have force fields, I'm able to trade very efficiently. However, I don't have enough zealots to trade efficiently again, so I just back off and stay content dealing with canceling this 4th base. And in doing this, my opponent had to bake a ton of Zerglings that he probably would have wanted in drones or other things. I'm able to safely saturate my 3rd, and I'm also climbing my tech tree pretty much as I want. Immediately run back after the push with your army, Try not to get caught by a bunch of rings and lose your expensive immortals. And now suddenly, my opponent goes all the way down below 60 workers while I'm up in the 75 range. They have Mutalisks, and I already have Blink in preparation for Mutalisks. Warping in an Archon, I have Dark Shrine. My tech is higher than my opponent's. I have more workers, and my food is only down by just a little bit here, even though they've been spending all their Vespene gas. And now I'm just in a very solid position due to an intelligent timing in the mid-game. If you have any questions about this style of PvZ, please feel free to ask me in the Hotkeyit forums, and I hope you enjoyed the video.